What is this self? Great thinkers have pondered about it deeply. If you ask a pseudo-scientist of today, they will say that a bag of chemicals is the self. It consists of various carbon, hydrogen, oxygen atoms put together in a particular structure, and that creates the self. In other words, the self is nothing beyond atoms and molecules gathered in a particular manner. But even 2500 years ago, there were thinkers who were not satisfied with this reductionist understanding of the self. And they pondered, who am I? Who am I? Like a mechanic, if he tries to figure out how the car moves, he says the wheels are rotating, trace the motion back, the axle rod is spinning, trace it further back, it's receiving its impetus from the piston. Take it further back, the piston is being pushed by the fuel, and the fuel is receiving its ignition through the accelerator or the ignition switch, and the direction is coming from the wheels. So this motion is all starting from the ignition switch, the accelerator and the wheels. So a mechanic would analyze it to that point. But actually there is a driver seated who is operating all these things. Similarly, if you ask a doctor, how does the body function? The doctor may say because the heart is pumping, the brain is working, etc. But beyond that is an entity called the self, which is energizing this whole mechanism. What is that self? Socrates considered it to be the highest knowledge, understanding of the self. And he would keep pondering over it. That is why in Athens, in the temple of Apollo in Delphi, the words are engraved, Socrates' words, "Nothis euton." In Greek, know thyself. So Socrates encouraged people to think, who are you? Once he was in deep thought and he was walking on the street when he knocked into a policeman. The policeman said that, you fellow, you can't even walk straight. Who are you? Socrates said, my dear friend, I've been thinking of this question for the last 40 years. Who am I? If you ever come to know who am I, please tell me. Socrates would have been delighted to hear what Sri Krishna has to say. Sri Krishna says, Arjun, that I entity is such that it never dies. It is eternal. In other words, its journey did not begin upon birth, and it's not going to end upon death. So neither are you ever going to die, nor I, Arjun, nor all these kings that you are so worried about killing. Actually, the Vedas say there are 3 eternal entities. Gyāgyau dvāvajā vīṣanīṣāvajā hyeka bhoktri bhogyārtha yukta anantaścātmā vishvarūpo hyakarta trayam yada vindate brahmametat. This is the 9th verse of the first chapter of the Shvetashvatar Upanishad. This Upanishad is stating that there are 3 tattvas or entities in creation. three tattvas. One is God, one is the soul, and one is the material energy Maya. So it says that the soul is Aj. Aj means Ajamna, without any birth. God is also Aj, without birth. And the material energy, it is Aja. Because it is given the gender striling, feminine. So the word has changed to Aja. So it says Gyau Dvavaja Vishanisha. The soul is immortal, God is immortal, and the material energy is also immortal. So, in other words, we have the same age as God. He is eternal, we are eternal. Our material intellect cannot grasp that. In the world, if you ask somebody, what's your age? 25 years. What's your father's age? 25 years. No, not possible. How can that be? But in this case it is. God is also immortal. And we, His children, we are also immortal. Once, I asked a boy, can you please tell me where is your father's house? He said, Swamiji, it is in front of my uncle's house. I said, where is your uncle's house? He said, it's in front of my father's house. So I said, where is your father's and your uncle's house? He said, they're in front of each other. Very enlightening. So similarly, here also the matter is something like this. If somebody asks you that you are studying the Bhagavad Gita nowadays, can you tell me since when have we souls existed? You can tell that person, we have existed ever since God has existed. And if the person asks you, since when has God existed? You can tell that person, God has existed ever since we have existed. And if the person asks a third time, since when have we and God both existed? You can say, we have existed since even the question when did not exist. In other words, when is relevant when time begins. Time begins, then you can say when. Before creation, there was no time. Aksharat sanjayate kalaha. God creates the world and He starts off time. Like a watchmaker makes a watch and it starts moving. So we and God have existed even before this world has existed. But the world is made of Maya. Did Maya come into existence at a point in time? No, Maya is also eternal. All these are energies of God, both the soul and Maya. Prakritim Purushan Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi, he says in the 13th chapter. So just like you light a fire and you ask somebody, there's heat from the fire? Yes. Since when does the heat exist? Since the fire exists. There is light from the fire? Yes. Since when does the light exist? Since the fire came into being. In other words, the moment the fire came into being, its energies, heat and light, also came into being. Similarly, we, the soul and material energy Maya, we are energies of God. We have existed ever since the Supreme Energetic has existed. So there is no beginning to God. There is no beginning to Maya. When Mahapralaya was existing before creation, Maya was in a subtle form. It's not that it did not exist, it was in a subtle form. When creation takes place, it unwinds. From Prakriti comes Mahan, from Mahan comes Ahankar, from Ahankar comes Tanmatra, from Tanmatra, space. From space, air, then fire, then water, then earth, then living entities, and the world is created. So Maya is also eternal, and we souls are also eternal.